Welcome students. In this lecture we will be discussing about interval estimation and when they are concerned with the difference of the means. Previously we discussed the interval estimation of a single population mean using a single sample and its sample statistics, which were the mean value of the sample and the standard deviation of the sample or the standard deviation of the population. Over here, we will discuss the special case when we are comparing more than one population. Rather, particularly, we are comparing two populations. When we compare the two populations, then basically we can have the two cases. Either we are summing the populations or we are differencing the populations. Although we will discuss both cases, but particularly our objective in this lecture is the estimation of the difference of means. That is when the populations are being subtracted. Mathematically, we can say that the populations are being added or subtracted, but basically, conceptually, we should understand that whenever we are subtracting the populations or we are summing up the populations, then in some way or the other, we are comparing them. Most commonly, we do the difference operations when we do the comparison between the two. It could be the case that we have two populations and we want to see that which one is better than the other, or which one is greater than the other, or which one likewise, otherwise which one is smaller than the other. So there could be anything. The comparison could involve anything, and this is very commonly used in statistical inference. It's a very common statistic that is used in the statistical inference problems. So let's start with it, the estimation of the difference of means. We can do this estimation of difference of means in two cases. The first case is the case of two independent populations. That is, we will be provided with two separate populations and we would be comparing them. The second case would be that we will be given the same population and we would be comparing two different situations from that same population. So the concept, we'll start with the case of two independent populations. The concept, consider a random sample mean x1 bar indicated by small case x1 bar for some random sample 1 belonging to a sampling distribution of mean caps x1 bar of population 1. That is, we have some population 1. We took a sampling distribution of mean of it, and from sampling distribution of mean, we took a random sample x1 and got its mean as x1 bar. Simple thing. The expected value of this sampling distribution of the mean would definitely be the population mean of the population 1 from which the sampling distribution mean or sampling distribution of mean belong to. The variance of x1 bar is given by s1 square upon n1, and when we use this s1 square upon n1 for the variance, then it means that we do not have the population standard deviation, rather we are making use of the sample standard deviation. And this is the case that most often happens, because normally we are not provided with the population standard deviation, so we have to use the sample statistics. So in this lecture we will be focusing on the sample statistics rather than the population standard deviation. And we also know from our lecture or from our discussion of the estimations that when we do not have the population standard deviations, then we make use of the t-scores, that is the t-tables. And otherwise we would be using the z-scores or the z-table. So we will here be using the t-scores or the t-tables. So if the variance of the sampling distribution of the mean x1 bar is s1 square upon n1, then definitely the standard error of the mean of this population 1 indicated by SEM1 would be square root of this variance, which will give us S1 upon root n1. So S1 upon root n1, where S1 is the standard deviation of sample 1 from population 1 and n1 is the sample size of the sample 1 from this sampling distribution of mean x1 bar. Likewise, we can have just another random sample mean x2 bar for some random sample 2 belonging to a sampling distribution of mean caps x2 bar of population 2, and definitely the expected value of this sampling distribution of the mean will give us the population mean of population 2 or mean of the population 2. The variance of this sampling distribution of the mean or our second sampling distribution of the mean is given by s2 square upon n2. That is the standard error of the mean, or SEM2 is S2 upon root n2, where S2 is the standard deviation of sample 2 from population 2 and n2 is the sample size of the sample 2 from this sampling distribution of mean x2 bar. Now there's too much text present over here. Although it is very simple thing, but there's too much text present over here. So let's forget about all this text and start understanding this thing pictorially. So what we are saying is this, that we have one sampling distribution of the mean which is equals to caps x1 bar, and definitely it will be a normally distributed random variable. The central value of it would indicate the population mean 1 or mean of the population 1, and there is some random sample mean x1 bar present over here, as can be seen like this. Likewise, we have another sampling distribution of mean x2 bar, which will also be normally distributed from central limit theorem, and this is the horizontal axis of it containing x2 bar. Likewise, this was the horizontal axis for the first sampling distribution of the mean, indicating caps x1 bar. Just like the previous case, in this case as well, the central value or the expected value of this x2 bar would be the mean of the population 2 indicated by mu2, as it was in the previous case it was mu1, which was the mean of the population 1. And again we say that there's some random sample x2 present over here for this second sampling distribution of mean, and we have some sample statistic x2 bar or the sample mean for it. Now what we are doing is this, that we have some population cloud 1. We took a sample from it and we named it as sample 1. This is just a random sample, and this sample 1 is basically indicated over here on this sampling distribution of mean for this population. This is the mean of this random sample 1, right? But we must conceptually know this thing, that this sampling distribution of the mean would only be obtained if we have all the possible samples from this population cloud 1. The variance of the sampling distribution of mean is S1 square upon N1, and the SEM or SEM1 is S1 upon root N1. In a similar fashion, we have some population cloud 2, and if we have all the possible samples from this population cloud 2, then we can have the second sampling distribution of mean given by caps x2 bar, and definitely its expected value would be the mean of this population 2, this population for which is the mean of this population cloud 2, and there's a random sample 2 that we took from here from this population or over here on the sampling distribution of the mean, which is present somewhere over here. Now, what is the next thing? The next thing is this, that we can either add these two sampling distributions of the means, which is indirectly saying the same thing, that we can add these two populations, or we can subtract these two sampling distributions of the means, or indirectly we are saying that we are subtracting the two populations. Whether we add the two populations or we subtract the two populations, or put it in another way, that whether we add the two sampling distribution of means or we subtract the two sampling distributions of means, we would obtain a new population. That is what we call the population cloud 3. In other words, we would obtain a new sampling distribution of the mean, which we called caps x3 bar. If we are adding the two sampling distributions of the means, then the central value of this third population would be given as mu1 plus mu2, which are the respective population means of population 1 and population 2. But if we are subtracting the two populations, or indirectly saying it in this way, if we are subtracting the two sampling distributions of the means, then the central value of this third sampling distribution of mean would be the mean of the third population given by caps x1 bar, sorry, which is given by mu1 minus mu2, pardon me, which would be mu1 minus mu2. Okay, and there could be any random sample x3 bar over here, or there could be any other sample over here. Considering the variances, the variance 1 which is the variance of the first sampling distribution of the mean, is S1 square upon N1, and the square root of it would give us the SEM1, the standard error of the mean 1. Variance 2 is the variance of the second sampling distribution of the mean, which is S2 square upon N2, and the square root of this variance would give us a standard deviation of this sampling distribution of the mean, which we call the sampling standard error of the mean. And to indicate it, we have just like previous case, we have subscripted it with SEM2, and the square root of the variance would give us definitely S2 upon root N2. Okay. Now the law of variances states this thing, that whether we add the two sampling distributions of means or we subtract the two sampling distributions of means, variances are always added. They are never subtracted. That is, the variance 3 of this third sampling distribution of the mean belonging to the third population cloud would be the sum of the previous two variances, S1 square upon capital N1 plus S2 square upon capital N2. And definitely the square root of this variance 3 would give us the standard error of mean 3, that is under root S1 square upon caps N1 plus S2 square upon caps N2. This is a very, very important rule to always remember, that whether the sampling distributions are added or subtracted, law of variances states that they are always summed. The variances are always summed. I'm emphasizing on it that the variances are always summed. And the square root of that variance would give us the standard error of the mean, that is S1 square upon N1 plus S2 square upon N2, and the whole root, taking it under the whole square root. Over here, I want to indicate one very important thing, that mostly, I mean, not mostly, rather, some students do it in this way, that they first calculate the standard deviation, and taking square of the standard deviation, they find the variance. Conceptually, this is a very, very wrong thing to do. You have to first find the variance and then the standard deviation. The logic also says this thing, that first we find the square of the errors and then we take the square root of it to get the error. Because over here, if we would have first calculated the SEM or the standard deviation, and from the standard deviation we would be trying to find the variance, then we could go wrong in this way. So be careful with this. Now coming to the estimation. Remember that for one sample, the estimation of population mean mu was given by the equation mu is equals to x bar plus minus t s upon root n. Here t value is called the critical t value for a confidence interval, and also sometimes indicated with t subscript to c, where c is for critical. Let's we have means from sampling distribution 1 and sampling distribution 2, and they are x1 bar and x2 bar respectively. If the two sampling distributions are added to obtain mu3, then the estimation is given using the two sample means and the from two separate populations, making use of this equation as follows, that mu1 plus mu2 is equals to x1 bar plus x2 bar plus minus t and the SEM of it. Now, if we see that the format is the same, that is, we are basically using over here the sample means x bar, x1 bar plus x2 bar would give us some x3 bar value, plus minus t under root s1 square upon n1 plus s2 square upon n2 is the same SEM value which was over here. And if the two sampling distributions are subtracted to obtain the third population, then the estimation is given using two sample means from two separate populations as follows, that is mu1 minus mu2 is equals to mu3. Previously as well, it was mu1 plus mu2 is equals to mu3. The only difference is x1 bar plus x2 bar was the previous case when the two populations were added, or when the two sampling distributions were added. And over here, the case is x1 bar minus x2 bar when the two sampling distributions are subtracted, or when the two populations are subtracted. Then plus minus t over here in both cases, and the SEMs are same, s1 square upon n1 plus s2 square upon n2, the same value of the standard error of the mean, either for the case of the subtraction of the sampling distributions of the means, or for the case of the addition of the sampling distributions of the means, right? So this means that in general form, The interval estimation can be written as the population estimate is equals to estimated value plus minus critical value multiplied by the standard deviation of the estimate, or population estimate is equals to estimate value plus minus margin of error. This product of T and the SEM, whether it is in this equation or it is in this equation or it was in that equation. This product of T with the SEM, or if you are using the Z scores and the product of Z with the SEM, is basically what we call the margin of error. So for example, the population estimate is equals to, the population estimate of the mean is equals to sample mean plus minus critical value into standard error of the mean. The standard error of mean is the standard deviation of the sampling distribution of the mean, which we have always emphasized and again over here. This general format can graphically be shown something like this, that if we have a normally distributed random variable, a normally distributed random variable of T, right? Because now we are working on T scores, then always remember that whenever we are working on the interval estimation, then the area is taken as a two-tailed area, that is from the central value. So the confidence interval or CI would be in the center, and all the area outside this confidence interval is we symbolized with alpha, or it is also called as the alpha area. And since we are taking the area from the center, therefore the alpha would be equally divided in both unused regions, and so in both regions we would have something like alpha by 2, right? So if this is the t-score distribution or a standard t-score distribution, then the central value we would have t is equals to 0, and the points where we have alpha by 2 regions starting, or the points where the CI is ending, is given by either TC plus TC minus TC, or plus T alpha by 2 minus T alpha by 2, or simply by plus T and minus T. Alpha is called the level of significance, and it is always equal to 1 minus confidence interval. So this alpha is also called the level of significance. So for example, if alpha is 0.05, then alpha by 2 would be 0.025, that is from 5% to 2.5%, and confidence interval would be 1 minus alpha, that is 1 minus 0.05, that is 0.95, indicating 95%. As could be seen in the graph over here, that the central area is 95%, or 1 minus 0.05%, and outside this we have the area which is 2.5%, or alpha by 2%. In independent populations case, with reference to SEM, we have further two cases. One is the case of equal variances, and the other is the case of unequal variances. If sample variances are equal, then SEM3 equation can be simplified as follows. And I mean, starting from this equation, which was under root S1 square upon N1 plus S2 square upon N2, right? Since the sampling variances are same, therefore S1 square is equals to S2 square is equals to S square, and we would obtain something like this, that S square would be taken as common, and 1 upon N1 plus 1 upon N2. I would like to do a little correction over here, as could be seen, because when S square comes out of this square root, then the S square would not be the term, rather we would simply have the S term. So let's do this correction, because S square would be inside the square root but not outside. Okay, so the degree of freedom, or the DF, in this case is calculated as follows, that N1 minus 1 plus N2 minus 2, or N1 plus N2 minus 2. And how this appeared, because we know that the individual degree of freedom of the sample standard deviation or the sample variances is n minus 1. So n1 minus 1 is for the first case, or the first sample standard deviation, and n2 minus 1 is for the second sample standard deviation. And when we total them, we get this thing, that n1 minus 1 plus n2 minus 1, or n1 plus n2 minus 2. Now, actually, practically, it never happens that we get exact value of the variances, because we are in the random scenario. But there is some assumption, some approximation present, and an accepted rule is that equal variances can be assumed if the ratio of the sample standard deviations satisfy this relationship or this interval, that the ratio of S1 upon N2 or S2 upon N1 is somewhere in between 0.5 and 2. But remember this thing, that in the question it is said that you have to use equal variances or unequal variances explicitly. If it is mentioned, then we have to follow that thing. We won't be using this rule then. Furthermore, in this case, we have to, so when they are not exactly equal to each other, we basically have to make them equal to each other, or we have to some way or the other pool them or group them. So if this is the case, that they are not exactly equal to each other but lying in this ratio, then in this case we have to pool or group the variances as one single value. This, the square root of this variances is called the pooled standard deviation, often indicated by SP, and is given by the equation SP is equals to under root n1 minus 1 s1 square plus n2 minus 1 s2 square upon the degree of freedom, which is n1 plus n2 minus 2. And hence the estimation formula becomes something like this. The only thing that has changed in this estimation formula over here, which was the formula that we were discussing in this case for the addition of two sampling standard deviation, sorry, addition of two sampling distribution of means and subtraction of sampling distribution of the means, is this: we have replaced this standard deviation of sample with the pooled standard deviation, also indicated by SP, right? So this is the new formula, and the only thing that new over here is the SP value, or the pooled standard deviation, right? But in the second case, when we do not have the equal variances, when the interval constraints are not satisfied, these interval constraints are not satisfied, then definitely we have the case of unequal variances. And in that case, the formula does not change. The formula remains as it is for the estimation. But the only thing that is changed is the way the degree of freedom is calculated. And this is the quite weird looking formulation of the degree of freedom. So the only tiring problem, the only weary problem is the calculation of degree of freedom. The estimation formula remains as it was, right? Because we cannot take anything common, so it is as it is. So for the case of for the case when the two sampling distributions of means are added, we get the new estimation something like this, and when the two sampling distribution of means are subtracted, we get the estimation something like in this equation. And the only thing that changes is the degree of freedom, or the DF value. So case of one sample population. What happens when we have the samples, two samples taken from the same population? Consider the case that we take two samples from the same sampling distribution of mean of single same population. The difference of the sample values. So what we do over here is this, that we take the difference of the sample values, and this will give us a new difference data set. We call this data set a difference data set, that will estimate a new difference population as follows. If mu d is the new difference population, then xt bar is the mean of the new difference data set, and t is the critical t value for any confidence interval, sd is the standard deviation of the new difference data set, and n is the sample size of the new differences data set, right? The degree of freedom in this case would be n minus 1. So pictorially, this can be seen that if this is our population cloud and we have sample 1 and sample 2, then we have to find point to point difference of the two samples, and this will form a new difference data set XD. Mean of all such similar differences data set XD will definitely give us the sampling distribution of the difference of means, or the XD bar, capital XD bar, which is shown as a normal distribution somewhat like this, right? So if we summarize the formulae of the estimation of the difference of means, we have something like this, that mu3 or the mu1 minus mu2 value is given by x1 bar minus x2 bar plus minus t sp1 upon n1 plus n2 under root. And the condition is when we have two samples from two separate populations, and the two samples have equal variances. If this is the condition, then we would be using this equation or this formula for the estimation. The second case is when we have two samples from two separate populations or independent populations, and the two samples have unequal variances. So if this is the case, then the formula to use for estimation is this one. That is mu1 minus mu2 is equals to mu3, which is x1 bar minus x2 bar plus minus t under root s1 square upon caps n1 plus s2 square upon caps n2. And the last case, when we have two samples from one single and same population, then the estimation of the difference of mean mu t is given by xt bar, that is the mean of the differences data set, plus minus t st upon root n, that is the standard deviation of the differences data set upon square root of the sample size. Now, we should also understand this thing that all this discussion has led us to two different type of research methodologies. The first two cases, that was the case of the two independent populations. The first two cases are similar in the fact that they involve two separate populations and definitely then two sample means. The two sample means, their sample variances and sample standard deviations are calculated separately, as we have seen in the previous slides. They are then used in the estimation formula. This particular type of way of working is in research methodology is basically called independent means or between groups case. In the last case, which we saw just now, is this is the last case, which was different from the first two as well. In this case, we should firstly note that the population is same, and secondly, the sample values are subtracted, and this gives a new differences data set. So we are creating a new data set, which we were not doing in the previous two cases. After obtaining this new differences data set, its sample mean, variance, and standard deviation are used in the estimation formula. The way we do the research in this way, or this type of research methodology, is called the dependent means or paired groups case or repeated measures case, right? So this was all the theoretical aspect regarding the estimation of the differences of the means. In the next lecture, we will see some examples, and those examples would definitely help us understand the scenarios much better. So if you have any queries, any confusions, you can write down in the comments, and I will then get back to you. So thank you very much.